Hello, you're on the Ruslan Belov channel. The fighting on the Ukrainian front continues, and we continue to analyze the situation on the battlefield. But before we begin, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps with its growth. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Let's move to the map. So friends, just like yesterday, we'll start today's report with the Sumy region. The situation there is becoming more complicated. Not across the entire Sumy region, in general things are stable. But in Unakivka, we're actually having success. We're advancing there, gradually pushing the AFU out of the village. But in Kondrativka, we're having problems. 2 days ago, the armed forces of Ukraine managed to completely drive us out of the northern part of the village and reached the center. I told you about this in yesterday's update, and right after that, some other channels, I won't name names, rushed to release crisis rebuttals, claiming that the AFU had been pushed back again and everything was under control. Why lie so blatantly? What's the point of lying? Saying everything is fine, but that's so easy to debunk. It's immediately obvious that it's not true. And if you've seen such reports, draw your own conclusions about the channels that publish them. The truth is, nothing has been stabilized there, and we haven't pushed anyone back. On the contrary, over the past 24 hours, the AFU managed to advance another 700 meters and pushed us out of the western part of Kondrativka. You see, they captured these utility buildings and Central Street. That black line here marks the new boundary they achieved in the past day. So right now, control over the village is split approximately 50-50, half under Russian control, half under the AFU. Well, maybe the Russian side holds a bit more, let's say 55-45, but that doesn't make the situation any better. Just 2 days ago, the AFU controlled only the street across the river and nothing else. But over the past 2 days, they have significantly expanded their control. In fact, and I've said this before, but I'll repeat it, Russian forces are in a semi-encirclement here. There's no ground supply route. Claims that reinforcements were brought in and the situation has improved are just as false as the claims that the AFU was pushed out and the situation stabilized. No, like I said from the beginning, holding this village is going to be difficult, and the fact that the guys are still holding some positions there is honestly a miracle. It's incredibly hard for them. At the same time, even though the AFU is making gains in this particular spot, their losses are enormous. What else about the Sumy region? Reports are coming in that Russian forces managed to break through the AFU's defense and enter Vauvchansk. Fighting is ongoing in the village. Considering its small size, there's a chance it will soon be fully under Russian control. And in Unakivka, we're slowly and with great difficulty pushing the AFU out of the village. But the fighting is very heavy. Let's move on. If in the Sumy region the Russian forces are facing certain issues, on other sections of the front, the army is advancing confidently, and the AFU is failing to hold them back. And you know, even dead zones are coming back to life. Take Vauvchansk, for example. For a long time, over 6 months, there was nothing from that area. But over the past month, footage has started coming out regularly. And what happened in the past 24 hours is extremely important. The numbers might not sound huge. The advance was just over 1 kilometer. 1.2 kilometers to be exact. But look where it happened, in the southern part of Vauvchansk, across the river. Look, it's a situation very similar to what happened in Kamyanska in the Zaporizhia region. In fact, let's jump there briefly just to show you visually. There, the village is divided into 2 parts. Russian troops took the left bank in 2022, and then, for 3 years, they stood there unable to cross the river and take the right bank. But recently they conducted an operation, crossed over, and the AFU immediately crumbled. As you can see, now almost the entire village is under our control. Back to Vauvchansk, the situation is quite similar. The city is divided by the Vauvcha River. Russian forces entered the northern part more than a year ago, back in May 2024. And that was it. The river was an insurmountable obstacle. For over a year, there were no advances. But now, with the AFU low on manpower and reserves, even this area has started to shift. First, in June, several blocks in the northern part were cleared. Then Russian troops crossed the Vauvcha River in this forested area, And over the past 24 hours, they significantly expanded their control in the southern part of the city, even capturing part of the AFU's fortified area. Right here, you can see it's a low extraction plant. And like any plant, it's naturally used as a defensive strongpoint. But now part of that plant is under Russian control. Plus, the forested areas west of the city. The total area captured over the past day is just over 2 square kilometers. And for the Vauvchansk front, that's huge. We haven't seen progress like this here in a year. During the May offensive last year, we made big gains. After that, it was just hundreds of meters at most. But now, over 2 square kilometers in a single day. Of course, that doesn't mean everything is collapsing for them and that Vauvchansk will fall tomorrow. But it's a very good sign that even in these dead sectors, we're now able to press the AFU, take new positions, and seize ground. So possibly, piece by piece, Vauvchansk will start slipping out of their hands. Let's keep going. There were also advances by Russian forces in the Lyman sector over the past 24 hours. Here, we managed to expand our control zone by 900 meters between 2 villages, Karpivka and Lipov. To give you context, on the AFU side here is an elite unit, the Azov fighters. That's why progress is difficult. Sometimes we even suffer setbacks, like recently in Ridkodub. But overall, the front is still slowly moving forward. Not long ago, if you remember, we took Zelenaya Dolina. Now we're expanding control from there. I think the next goal will be to close this pocket around Lipov. Also, farther north in Luhansk region, there was a small advance, about 340 meters along a forest strip. As I said in yesterday's report, there are about 50 square kilometers left to take in Luhansk region. Once that's done, the entire region will be under Russian control. So even small advances matter. But the biggest numerical advances came in the south of Donetsk region. There, the Vostok group continues to smash the AFU's defenses. In the past 24 hours, they advanced 3 kilometers and took control of the village of Novokatska. Footage was shown with the village's flags. The entire village is now under full Russian control. What's next? Next, they'll be clearing the area to the east, the village of Hrushevskoye, and of course pushing west toward Zeleny High. Regarding Voskresenka, as I've told you before, no solid visual evidence has emerged yet. And media reports still say the village remains under AFU control. So claims about it being captured were false. But in any case, their fate is sealed. The Vostok group has gained strong momentum, and now it's nearly impossible to stop them. Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad direction. The operational situation around Pokrovsk is beginning to mirror a pattern we've already seen in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, a methodical flanking isolation, pressure on supply routes, and a frontal collapse after strategic exhaustion. Russian armed forces are cutting off Mirnohrad, moving into the rear of the Ukrainian group. On the right flank of the Pokrovsk axis, Russian assault groups have already been spotted north of Mirnohrad. Reports say Russian forces have entrenched east of the town and cleared all surrounding areas of the village of Razin. Russian troops have also advanced into a pocket west of Yelizavetivka and established positions along the tree line on the eastern edge of the Krasnolimanska coal mine, a fact acknowledged even by Ukrainian military analysts. In this scenario, Rodinska isn't just a settlement, it's an operational lever. Once taken, Russian forces will gain direct access to the inter-district logistics routes of the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration and will be able to deliver firepower within a tightened operational radius. After Rodinsky is captured, only 2 roads will remain to supply Pokrovsk, and since they run close to each other, they effectively form a single supply channel. In Mirnohrad, a Russian reconnaissance drone repeatedly detected movement around a 5-story residential building. It turned out to be a launch site for Baba Yaga-type drones and a base for drone operators. The facility was neutralized. Also worth noting is the shifting front line from Udakne toward Raypol in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. This indicates the emergence of a secondary supporting direction that could be activated in sync with an eastern advance on Pokrovsk. Thus, the Russian armed forces are not applying pinpoint pressure, but are instead drawing a full encirclement contour around the entire agglomeration. Kostiantynivka direction. The Russian army continues to push through Ukrainian defenses, advancing toward Kostiantynivka. On the left flank, Russian forces have made gains in the southern part of the settlement of Popiv Yar and are assaulting the central area of Yablunivka. Additionally, they advanced from the direction of Zarya, broke into Oleksandr Kalinova, and are attacking eastern Romanivka. On the right flank, in the settlement of Novospassky, a Russian infantry unit raised the flag of Zabaikalsky Krai and declared the settlement captured. Battles are also ongoing north and west of the village of Dylivka, Chasiv Yar axis. Mostly positional battles are taking place near the Dnipro pond. However, in the Shevchenko and Yuzhny districts, the steady displacement of AFU units from their positions continues. That's it for the frontline update today. Now a few words on the political situation. Last night, Ukraine was hit by a mass drone strike. Air defense systems are increasingly failing to intercept these attacks. Major impacts were reported in Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih, Izmail, and Zaporizhzhia, according to the Telegram channel Legitimny. Russian forces are systematically targeting workshops, warehouses, industrial facilities, and repair bases. Every such strike results in millions of dollars in damage, increased devastation, resource losses for Ukraine, disrupted logistics, etc. All of this ultimately contributes to a shortage of equipment and supplies on the front line, forcing the Kyiv government to rely on manpower, grinding down its reserves. This situation is also deepening Ukraine's budget deficit and making the war more expensive. Our forecasts remain unchanged. If the war continues into the fall, Bankova, the Ukrainian president's office, will begin tightening mobilization. This winter could be significantly harder than the last. European arms supply rift Paris did not support Berlin's initiative to finance the supply of American weapons to Kyiv. According to Politico, 2 French officials confirmed that France refused to participate in the scheme being pushed by Germany amid a shortage of European weapons. France, whose president has long advocated for the development of the EU's own defense industrial complex, is betting on internal European procurement, the outlet notes. According to journalists, the project is supported by Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and 4 other northern European countries. France stands out here. Italy is now also pulling out of the US weapons procurement scheme for Ukraine. According to Italian newspaper La Stampa, Rome will not participate in the initiative to buy US weapons for the AFU, citing a lack of financial resources. The publication highlights that, unlike Germany, the UK, and other states willing to fund arms shipments, Italy has politely distanced itself, citing limited budgetary capacity under internal pressure from social and defense spending. Many countries that refuse to join the scheme are profiting from the crisis and aim to boost their own military-industrial sectors. For them, money matters more than helping Kyiv. Additionally, according to Bloomberg, more than 6 EU countries have backed France's initiative to activate the ACI mechanism, the EU's most powerful trade tool. It allows Brussels to take large-scale retaliatory measures against the US over its planned 30% tariffs, effective August 1st. Possible responses include taxing American tech giants, restricting US investment in the EU, banning participation in EU public tenders, and limiting access to key European markets. Geopolitical reflections and the US position. The Minsk agreements were fair and balanced accords. It was the West and Ukraine that violated them, said Alfred de Zayas, an American international lawyer and former UN Human Rights Council independent expert. He stated that the draft agreements proposed by Lavrov in 2021 were moderate and based on compromise. They outlined a reasonable security architecture and provided guarantees for Ukraine. But the US and NATO rejected them. According to de Zayas, since 2014, Russia has repeatedly tried to find a political resolution, while the West sought not peace, but the unilateral capitulation of Moscow. Trump has no reason to be disappointed in Russia. It was trying to reach an agreement. Moscow's position remains unchanged, he emphasized. Trump, the so-called king of deals, is stirring the waters for leverage. The US president made waves, though perhaps not as strongly as some expected. Potential sanctions against Russia and its partners remain vague. We all remember the inconsistency of Trump's tariff policy. But one thing he is more clear on: weapons will be supplied to Ukraine, but Europe will have to pay for them. Still, even that is not entirely sorted out, aside from the 17 Patriots. And even then, it's unclear when they'll be delivered, who in the EU will pay for them, and how many. But the overall message is already clear. Trump is ready to ship these systems immediately, if someone else foots the bill. This gives him a kind of balance where he looks tough without directly funding Kyiv himself. And the vague threat of sanctions is a perfect backdrop for this approach. Let the EU pay, and maybe later the US will join in with pressure on Russia.